Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CX Accelerator Show. This is the place where we are equipping and connecting you as a CX professional on every stage of your career journey. Welcome back, Erica. Good to see you.
Hey Nate, how are you, my friend?
It's been a rocking week. I got some really exciting things going on. Been, of course, reading and learning and just growing in this space, which right now, Erica, I don't think it's ever been more important to try to stay on the cusp of what's going on and just keep yourself learning and activated.
I couldn't agree more. I've been telling several folks in my network that this is the summer of learning. We're going to use this summer slowdown to learn. So some of our friend group has been coming up with a TBR list, a to be read list, and we're taking weekly trips to the library and just reading as much as we can this summer, which is awesome. I think we need to bring back the Pizza Hut Book It program for adults. Who's in?
I think we could actually kind of make that happen through CX Accelerator. I mean, we have
Let's do it.
we have a mini library through the generosity of Donna. You know, she donated a bunch of books our way. We've got our mini CX living library. I actually want to have you seen in the park, Erica, they have those mini library pop-up library
Mhm.
things where, kids or anybody can go and grab a book and put a book in there. I really want to do one of those on our street.
You
So
should do it.
I'm looking at doing that. And of course we would put two books in there, which we're about to get to. But that would be just really fun to make that happen.
I love the idea. My mom has one of those in her neighborhood, and she's always
Oh, cool.
stocking them with books.
I love
Big
that. I love
reader
that.
here. So I'm excited about today's episode because we're going to chat about two books that launched just recently, written by authors in our very own CX Accelerator community. But before we dive in and get to the guests, I'm curious to know, Nate, is there a favorite book that you have in your library? What resources really helped to shape and guide your career in
What a
CX?
tough question to narrow that down. I think the one resource that has impacted my thinking the most has been Fusion by Denise Young. Just an unbelievable resource. And the way that she connected the dots between the culture, the employee experience, all the way through to the crunchy, the scientific customer experience, the way she connected the dots there has really formed my thinking in a big way.
Mm, she's fantastic. I saw her speak years ago, and I still remember how impactful her talk was. I
We
think for
were all
me,
together for that talk, and I remember distinctly when she asked for an iconic CX brand, I yelled out Taco Bell. And that's not the answer Denise was looking for. So I apologize again, Denise, for that.
sorry, Denise. I don't disagree with you though, Nate. Shout out to Taco Bell. I
Dude,
think they
it
do
has
have a great customer
surged since
experience.
that time, but at the time, it wasn't known as an iconic CX brand. But today, Erica, prophetic words there. Same question back at you. What is one of the most foundational resources that you've run into, Erica?
Yeah, so for me, I love The Art of Community by Charles Vogel. I've been recommending that to everyone I come in contact with, and on the surface, it may not seem like that's a CX book, but I would argue that it is.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he wrote this book over a decade ago, drawing from experience when he worked at Google, building community. And I actually think it's probably more relevant now than it even was 10 plus years ago because this AI kind of strips out the humanity in all of our everyday interactions. People are craving human connection more than ever. And that book is such a great roadmap for anyone out there who's looking to build connection with their customers. So I can't recommend that one highly enough.
CX leaders are community builders when we get down to the roots of the work. I love that. And Erica, you, I think just this last week had a major virtual speaking engagement. Did you not?
I did. I got to speak with the Fantastic event, which is the largest virtual event in the world for event organizers. Guru Hub Media puts it on.
Wow.
It's fantastic. I think there were 21,000 people there this year. There was a
My
human
gosh.
cannonball. It was just so much fun. And I got to talk about 10 ways to build community, which, as you guys know, is probably my favorite topic. They only gave me 27 minutes, which was the most impossible task,
Oh,
but
man.
it was incredible. Yeah.
Is there any way that we could ever see that talk? I would love to hear it.
I think I can pull some strings and get you a copy
Okay.
of that recording, Nate. I'd be happy
If we
to.
can, we will absolutely share that in the CX Accelerator community. Congratulations on that, Erica. What a cool thing to get to do.
Thank you, my friend. Maybe we'll do a whole episode on community building in the future, but for
I think we
now,
could.
I want to talk a little bit about books. Now, I mentioned that I'm an avid reader. I am all over book talk, as they call it on TikTok, always looking for new recommendations. And secretly, one of my own bucket list items is to become an author. And so today, I'm
Love it.
super excited that we have two authors with us. We're joined by Justin Robbins and Jeannie Walters, who are both such an integral part
Welcome.
of the CX Accelerator community. And they just launched books here in the last few months. So,
Mm,
Justin and Jeannie, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, we're
Thank you
excited
both.
to chat with you. And to kick it off, I really want to know what made you decide to write a book? And Jeannie, we'll start with you.
Well, this is such a funny question for me because you were saying like first of all, you just announced your secret bucket list item. I not you said secretly.
Secret's
Not so
out.
secret anymore.
Um and I had a similar like I'd always wanted to do it, but yeah, I really struggled with like what is the one message because I write so much anyway. The only thing I've ever done for my company in the almost 17 years that we've been around has been content marketing. So I've always been writing and writing and writing, but I can always update that. I can always change it. And what I realized was I needed to pull it into what I was seeing again and again, which is that the leaders I work with, they had such good intentions around customer experience, but good intentions aren't enough. And so, really developing with them intentional leadership and how to create that into a practical guide that really any leader can follow. That was my goal. And once I got clarity on that, I like couldn't not write the book, you know? So that's where I was coming from.
So
That's your why.
Jeannie has written this right here. Experience is everything, making every moment count in the age of customer expectations. What a great title. Beautiful cover, Jeannie. I
Thank
love
you.
the art, the colors that you selected. Just beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah. That's
It is beautiful. And topically, it's so essential, I think, for CX leaders today. So, what a perfect time to launch this book, Jeannie.
thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you so much.
You're
You
welcome.
you've always
Just
been one of my favorite writers, Jeannie, and just so excited and having, cracked this open and gotten into it, just incredibly helpful so far. You've got such a gift for simplifying complex things and
Thank you.
connecting dots in ways where, folks they just need a clear pathway in order to operate. And I really feel like you've given that through this resource. Well done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
yes.
that. And I've been really touched by the feedback that I've gotten. And that's part of the journey, I think, is it's scary. And I'm sure Justin shares this. Like you put it out to the world and you're kind of like, ugh. And so it's really gratifying to hear that. So I appreciate that, Nate.
I think Justin's greatest fear is to find his own book in the, Barnes& and Noble's budget rack.
I I
Isn't that any author's worst nightmare, Nate?
I think I texted you this day, Nate, but I was at my town's library like dollar bin
Yeah,
sale, and there was a book from an author that I know that was there, and I was like, this is gonna happen someday. That's the moment. It's the
someday.
humbling moment when you're in the dollar bin at the library.
Well, and going back to the little free library discussion, we have tons of them in my neighborhood, like
Cool.
every other block. And so many of my community members were so supportive about the book launch that I've already been like mentally preparing myself for the day I'm walking the dog and I go by and
Been
see
there,
my book in one of the little free libraries. So it's going to happen, you know?
and you should
You know
be
what?
proud of that.
I was gonna say, that's how you know you have arrived, Jeannie. Look forward to that day. That'll be a good day.
Here
I'll let you know.
here's the beautiful cover of More Than a Motto, Reignite Your Purpose, Rediscover Joy at Work. Just beautiful imagery here, Justin. You selected a megaphone. What was the reason behind that iconography?
We'll have to sit down with my friend Marty and talk
Yeah.
a little bit more about that. It's interesting, Jeannie. You said that you kind of got to this point where you couldn't not write the book,
Mm.
and similarly in terms of like this moment. So I had pivoted in college to English as a major and always loved words and story, and a lot of my writing was more often like research or training based. It was all around like equipping and translating stuff. And similarly had this like nudge at different points or people bring up like you should do a book. But Jeannie, I think I'm going to echo the how do you get to one idea?
Mhm.
And then just like being comfortable with the permanency or at least the perception of it once it's kind of there. So, struggled with it for a bit, but I would say this probably went into motion about 10 years ago. And it's when I started to try to connect the dots on my own work experiences and what was the thing that I felt kind of nudging at my heart and where was I being drawn to study, to talk. And I discovered it really boiled down to this idea of work design, but even more importantly than that, why does work seem to work against so many people, and what happens when it does? So the point of the megaphone was that as organizations, we are really good about broadcasting out promises, and we are really bad about putting them into our practices. And so, the book is really just me trying to, yeah, I think I finally got nudged to the point of like, this is surrounding me. I need to kind of bring these thoughts together and hopefully equip people to take it one step forward from that.
So I was lucky enough to be with Justin right around the time this book launched at Enterprise Connect, and he was doing book signings and talks around the book at that event. So I was able to hear real, live, raw reaction. And it feels like to me you struck a chord, Justin. So I'm curious, what has the reaction and response been so far from readers of this book?
What's been really interesting about this, Erica, is it's definitely struck a chord. I one of my biggest hesitations with putting this into the world is that it's not like squarely CX. Like I really wrote it for leaders in
Yes.
general. And
Yeah.
I think a couple things have really played out that have been interesting. I'm going to call three quick. One is there's somebody actually in my neighborhood who I don't even really know, but we happened to put something out when I was writing the book. And I mean, quite generally, we have never had a conversation. And I got like deep paragraphs from her of like, this is what she has been wrestling with her entire professional career.
Oh,
She ended up taking time away from work because like needed a hard reset. Um, Even just the event I'm at this week, somebody who was at Enterprise Connect is like, hey, he's like, it's funny, my wife borrowed your book and I haven't been able to get it back because it's like what she's been struggling with.
oh,
And it's just, I don't know, it's actually, I think it's heavy because everybody wants to feel purpose and joy and fulfillment at their jobs. And it's so
yes.
like, why? Like, why do we allow that to unwind? Because it's not intentional, but Ginny, you talked about this gap between intentions and what happens, but it's
Mhm.
like, this is the reality we find ourselves in. And we like, who's in the driver's seat of changing? And it's us.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say it's not really a CX book, Justin, because I see so many parallels between each of your books. The
Yeah.
the mission that you have, Justin, maybe more on the employee experience side on the surface, but Jeannie, you on the CX side, it's that gap. What can we do to fill that gap? How do we bridge the gap?
Yeah, and I definitely think there are, and it's funny to, like, put myself in this category as well, but, when I hear Justin talk, I'm like, and when I read the book, I was thinking, like, the parallels, I think, are we are both so motivated by the why, by, defining it and getting clarity over it so that you can make the changes you wanna make, so that you can get the outcomes you want, so that you can actually lead.
Yeah.
And that's, it's funny because I've had, like, people outside of CX read the book and tell me, "Oh my gosh, this, you know, helped me." And I think part of it is because that's what it's really about. It's about intentionality and then turning that into the outcomes you need through a solid plan and taking those steps.
And at the end of the day, experience is everything.
There
So,
you go. Thank you. I
it makes
appreciate it.
sense that would happen. Yeah, Justin, I've just loved this so far. You've got such a gift with words and balancing inspirational with practical. You've got just wonderful stories here. you're going to help so many people with this book, and
Thank
I
you.
know you already have. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, let's I would love, and you kind of hinted at it, but with both of these books, I think one of the most critical things, and maybe this could become a bit of advice to new authors, somebody like an Erica, who someday we're going to be celebrating her book on this podcast. But I think one of the hardest things is to decide who you're trying to help and specifically how. So how did you get there, Jeannie, in terms of who and specifically how you're helping with this resource?
I think it's really a continuation of how I have always written. And I say that as a question because writing, I think, is like anything else. And when I started, it was different. I built the muscle, you're like, it's a practice. It's something we have to keep doing, which is why I think we have these concerns about where AI fits into writing now. And I'm seeing some books now that I'm pretty convinced were written by robots. And I feel like what I have always done is think about the one person that, the leaders that I work with, they're overwhelmed. They are asked to do too much. They have too many priorities. They are held accountable for things that they aren't responsible for. And they don't have the language. They don't have the way to communicate in the right way to get people's attention to understand these challenges. So I literally think of that one person, and their titles can be all over. Like,
Sure.
I drive my marketing people crazy because they're like, "Who's the title?" And I'm like, good luck." Like, I don't know, because we've been brought in by HR and tech and digital and like you name it. And so I just think about that one leader who
Yeah.
is struggling, and that's really who I focused on.
Good. Justin, same thing.
Yeah, I want to quick say though, so Jeannie, I think one of the things that I've always appreciated about your approach and your writing is just like your intimacy with the topic then enables you to be incredibly intimate one to one with whoever that leader is. And that I think is the thing that's always shined just incredibly true for you and why maybe your marketers are frustrated, but I think for people it's very meaningful because you have this way of it's something that is universally applicable, but it feels intimate and personal to the individual, and that's special.
Thank you. That's so
Yeah.
nice, Justin. Thank you so much.
You're so
Agreed.
nice.
You're so nice. We're all so nice.
No, I agree, Justin. There's something so authentic about your writing style, Jeannie, and it's genuinely helpful. I love reading your newsletters that come out every week too on LinkedIn. Like, you're just a beautiful writer, but it comes across so authentic and genuine, your tone of voice.
Thank you.
Um, at the risk, I don't wanna derail this, but you brought up something that I wanna touch on a little bit more, Jeannie, and this idea of what it means to be a writer or an author while AI is really taking off and everyone's kinda throwing virtual tomatoes at AI slop on the internet. You know, from your point of view, is there still a place in a future for
Mhm.
writers, and how can we stand out
Yeah.
in a sea of AI slop?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting question right now because I'll share that out of all the flowers that I've gotten for this book, which I so appreciate, there were a few tomatoes. There always are, right? And one woman reached out to me and accused not only me, but also some of the amazing people who gave me endorsements on the back of the book, who are well known writers, people like Anne Hanley. Um, they, she accused them and me of using AI. And part of it was because she reads my newsletter. And she said, "There's no way." And I was like, "I don't know where you've been for 17 years, but this is not new. Like, this is," and so I think we're now living in this world where we don't know what real is. We don't know what authentic is.
Goodness.
And the way I really thought about it for the book and for everything, I use writing as a thought process. I use it as a tool to clarify my own thinking and to learn how to communicate these ideas. And I think that if people are relying on AI for specifically writing, they are missing the opportunity to do that. And it's such a powerful tool because if you are letting AI write everything and then you come on a podcast like this and somebody says, well, what did you say about XYZ? Or why did you say that?
Mhm.
It's a lot harder to answer those questions
Yes.
if you have not actually formulated those thoughts. So I think
Yeah.
we are in a very strange time right now. And I really love AI for a lot of things. It can automate so many things. It can help with repetitive things. I mean, there's so much I use it for, but writing is challenging. I'm not also saying that I've never ever used it to start writing because I have. Um, but I think we have to be very careful about the uses of it. And so if I'm really struggling with something and I'm tempted sometimes, I'll remind myself, like, this is part of the process. This is
Yeah.
how we get there.
Yeah.
And then I'm better for it, I feel like too.
That's such good advice. I think sometimes you just have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, and writing is one of
Amen.
those things that makes you uncomfortable sometimes. There's gonna be writer's block.
And my younger one just completed his freshman year in college. And he called me at one point and he said, my next exam, they're having us use something called Blue Books. And they were going back to handwriting
Mhm.
because there was
Remember?
no way to really protect that these kids knew what they were doing without AI, and that was one of the ways they did that. They're also encouraging the right use, and professors are figuring
Sure.
this out with the rest of us.
Yeah.
But I thought that was so interesting because I was like, that's great because that forces you to know your stuff and to communicate well and to know at least the foundations of how to do that for the rest of your life. And I think we are in a time where it's going to be very easy to slip
Mhm.
into. My older one is a computer science graduate, and she talks about the snake eating its own tail in AI.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
if we don't invest more knowledge and information and thinking, we're just regurgitating the same thing over and over.
Truth. We gotta
Yeah.
get somewhere new. We gotta innovate together through
Yes.
these are both challenging books in terms of let's think about something new here. So you're pushing the engine forward, which I think is really good and really important. You know, as I think about the authors that are going to be successful, I think you make a good point here, Jeannie. I mean, it's gonna be the ones that can back it up with a really compelling video presence and be able to articulate these concepts, not just behind the covers of a book, but bring it to life through their own personal brand. I think that'll be even more important.
Well, and I think you look at someone like Justin, and there's no question of expertise, right? Like, it's not like Justin came out of nowhere and was like, I'm going to write a book.
Mhm.
So I think that's the other part is that people think that the book is how you prove yourself, but I think you have to prove yourself, and the book is just part of that journey.
You know,
You're right.
Gene, so there's a couple things that I want to like tie together here. So early we talked about, Erica, you mentioned about like the craving for humanity and humanness, and if we think about word and story, I mean, this is like the oldest form of how we've always connected with others, and I think it is just going to be easier to distinguish the people that continue to appreciate and hone that as an art that it is. And I agree with Jeannie that the struggle, I think, is one of the most frustrating, but also one of the most meaningful parts of it. Like, think about anything that any of us has ever done that's actually felt rewarding. It wasn't just handed to us. Like, we had to go through something for it to really, like, for us to feel the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Um, so I do think it will get easier and easier to discern the people who are genuinely leaning into this and what's ignorable. I love the blue books. My oldest is going into her junior year of high school, and she is very anti AI, and so
Mm.
she gets very frustrated when it's being used. But now I'm doubling down on humanness, and I'm gonna double down on what Jeannie said in terms of like to struggle through it. Like it is I think such a very cool thing of what can come out on the other side if you are willing to embrace that.
Yeah.
I love that point about struggling through it because to tie it back to your book, Justin, I would argue that doing the tough work of kind of dismantling the systems that we've been taught to work in, you have to be comfortable struggling a little bit because if you follow the advice in your book, you might not end up being the most popular person in the short term because you're going against the grain. So do you agree with that? Who did you write this for specifically, and how do you think it can help?
Yeah. So quick response to that is we all have muscle memory that has gotten trained and we don't even realize it. And undoing that is not easy. So that's like we have to be okay with that
Mm.
to reinforce that point. Um, who did I write it for? Quite honestly, I wrote it for me 15, 20 years ago. I wrote it for me 5 years ago. I wrote like everything that I put into that was something that I certainly experienced, but then I watched it being reflected in so many others. And I realized like I don't know anybody better than myself. And what I really tried to lean into is like to the point of expertise, I really tried to trust my instinct on that and not try to fight or architect something that wasn't there. But it's like, what is my response to like, what have I learned that I would do in this situation? If I think about some of the organizations that I studied as part of this too, it was the same thing of dissecting like how does what they did, how does that influence me? And so then like who is it who is it for at the end of the day? I mean, it's for anybody who finds themselves leading a team again, like quite genuinely leading a team and recognizing like work is working against us.
Mm.
I can't just blow it all up, but I do believe that I can commit to small things with consistency and that strategy will pay off for me in the long run. Like that's I tried to not make it more complicated than that.
Yes, and I think mission accomplished based on conversations I've had with other folks in CX Accelerator where they're like, "Man, I felt seen," because 'cause they're struggling with the same things on their team. So yeah, really well done, Justin.
So as we land this plane here, so the last question that I want to leave for both of you, you've been wonderful board members of CX Accelerator, the nonprofit entity that is CX Accelerator. Thank you both for serving so faithfully in that capacity. But I mean, the both of you have been so on mission with this idea of equipping CX professionals on every stage of their career journey. So as you think about these next 3 to 5 years, what do you see happening? What do you see changing that these folks need to be ready for? Let's start with you, Jeannie.
Oof. I do not have that crystal ball as clearly as I would like. And I think I'm saying that for everybody. I think we make so many predictions around AI, and we are at the start of the marathon. But what I do believe is that we all have to get very comfortable with it. We all have to know how it works. We all have to understand the pitfalls that could happen, both with our organizations and with our customers. One of the things I'm actually writing about this right now, it's not out, it'll be out soon, but with AI, there is no more fine print. And so, what does that mean for how we work with customers? What does that mean for how we try to protect ourselves with legalese and things? So, we have to start thinking a little bit like abstractly
Mm.
about the functionality of AI and how people could use it. But I think we are, again, at the beginning of the marathon, and we thought we were doing a 5K, but then we get to the beginning and they're like, "Oh no, this
Surprise.
is actually an ultra marathon and you're going 200 miles." And so just in the last, 16 months, think about how much has changed around it. And that's the pace I think we are going to be in for a while. And then I also think we're going to face regulations and different things that will shift everything again. So we have to be ready to be ready. And in my mind, what that means is everyone right now is a student. Everyone right now has to be dedicated to their own learning. I love like, instead of hot girl summer, let's have like reading girl summer. I love that. Um, because we need that. We need to just dive into it and play with it and understand it. And if people are saying, "Oh, I'm not going to touch it," I think that's a mistake, because even if you don't want to use it, you should understand how it works.
Hmm. Good advice. Justin, what say you, my friend?
I am increasingly convinced that the limiting factor for our organizations, for us, is not going to be technical capability. It really comes down to our capacity and comfort with change, with reinvention. And if I look at some of the most recent studies in terms of what organizations are saying is most important and the priority right now, so much of it comes back to workforce development, expanding human capability, to retention and engagement. These are not new problems, but on the opposite side of that rapid technical evolution that Jeannie, you alluded to, is also how it's evolving our humanness. And my advice over the next forever is to continue to lean into and invest in what enables all of us as humans to be our best at whatever we're doing. Like the tools, the environment around us, like it will always change, and we have to adapt and we have to grow. But I worry we've been in this moment of where we just wanted to swing the pendulum so hard around augmenting or replacing all of these things with technology that maybe some of us lost sight of how do we make sure that we're leaning into enabling us as people to change and evolve, because historically we've not been very good at that. So I don't expect us to suddenly get better at that. Um, but I think that's what we need to recognize, that on the other side of all this technical stuff, it's very, very human. It's very, very personal. And so that to me that's where I'm choosing to focus. I'm not ignoring what's happening with technology, but I am very specifically choosing to focus in on like, how do we make sure that our people really are able to be at their best?
And can I add to that? I love that, Justin. And I think when you think about putting those two things together and the discussion we had about like writing, we're kind of figuring out the puzzle pieces, right? And how do we put them in the right order so that we don't lose what makes humans human, and we provide that when it's most necessary, and we we're living in a world where this technology is going at the pace it's going, and so we have to keep up with that. So I think as a leader, what I would implore everybody watching or listening is just think about that balance. And if you feel like you're going one way or the other, write about it, you
Mm.
know, because that will help you clarify it and help you figure out what are the steps and where do I need to focus. So let's all read and journal all summer.
Yes, Nate, I think we need to get a challenge going in CX Accelerator.
I
Are you
think we can
game?
make that happen, Jeannie. I love that, and maybe that's part of how we have the right mechanism to give away some books.
Well, there we
Is
go.
those
And
that
we're throwing in
participate in that
personal pan
challenge?
pizzas.
Oh yeah, we need that too.
Okay. I'm
Here,
just
here
making sure that we haven't lost the track of that. That's
Thank you, Justin. Good looking out.
here in Tennessee, they're renovating our Pizza Huts to be 1980 Pizza Huts.
I heard about this. I think that's so cool. It's going to attract people to the space in such a isn't it funny how everyone is nostalgic about that program? Like
Yeah,
every single
yeah.
person of a certain generation, we all are we all want that personal pan pizza. It was worth the books.
it was worth the
And,
bucks.
and at some point, I got a CD burned at Pizza Hut.
Ooh,
Did you all ever have that? Yeah,
What?
no.
I
yeah.
don't think that was a Pizza Hut, Nate. Somebody deceived you.
That, was it a band?
There was a clown in the corner of the Pizza Hut that would burn you a CD. That wasn't universal. I don't understand.
You got a
Uh,
special Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
well, thank you both so much for the gift of these resources. I think it's cool thinking about how both of you arrived to the place where you knew it was time to write this book because your conviction level went off the charts, and you're like, this has to happen. So if anybody's out there wondering if it's time, you know it's time. If the message is bursting out of you, the message is clear. There's an audience that they have to hear it. It's time to write that book. So I hope Justin and Jeannie were able to encourage you on that path. They will be inside CX Accelerator. Erica and I are many steps backward on the path, but walking the same direction, and hopefully someday can be there as well as published authors. But we're just so grateful for the two of you sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you
Yes,
so
thank you
much.
both.
Yeah, so keep locked in terms of experience design. That was great challenge from Jeannie and Justin as well. Just thinking about the things that are coming up in the future. It's not going to get easier, folks. And we're in a major leadership crisis right now that we've been talking about that on this show. One of the greatest things that you can give is optimism, you can give hope, and you can give real wisdom. And these books are going to help you to do that. So encouragement for leaders of all types. Erica, any final advice that you want to tie down here?
I just want to say thank you, Justin and Jeannie, because you're both incredible humans. You're both incredible writers, but also obviously incredibly generous with your time. And we so appreciate it. And we so value your involvement and support with CX Accelerator and all the wisdom and inspiration that you've shared today. I've got some ideas turning, Nate. So stay tuned, CX Accelerator for community. We may have a journaling challenge coming up. Stay tuned.
That'll happen. And until the next time, experiences matter, and so do the people who make them. Thank you, everybody. Catch you next time.